In the Ahsoka series, we got introduced to the term Bokken Jedi. Now, for those who don't know, Bokken is actually a wooden sword that Japanese martial artists use to train their younglings. So it fits what the purpose of the name. But Bokken Jedi was first heard in the Ahsoka series. Previously, we've known that Jedi trained after Order 66, the most prominent one being Luke, of course, and they were these pseudo-Jedi that could never be knighted properly, same as they were during the Republic era. We see this in the Star Wars Rebels too with Luke, but I mean, Luke is kind of the prime example. He was knighted through fire, but at the same time, we acknowledge that he is one of the greatest Jedi of all time. In the prequel era, Yoda was actually the one that people thought of being the greatest Jedi ever, but in the end, he had to train and prepare this quote-unquote Bokken Jedi kid named Luke Skywalker. This is what Yoda said to Luke before dying in Return of the Jedi.
You, when gone am I, the last of the Jedi will you be?
So if he was the last of the Jedi, then Yoda kinda lied, of course. There were all these Bokken Jedi roaming around at the time that Yoda didn't tell Luke about. Luke even met one of them in Ahsoka Tano, as we see in the Book of Boba Fett. So why is Yoda not informing Luke more thoroughly? Does he not think these other Jedi are real Jedi, like he or now Luke in his mind? Of course, we're gonna tackle this in every angle. So to start with, I'm going to say that the truth is that George Lucas wrote this around 40 years ago. At the time, Luke was going to be the last Jedi after Obi and Yoda. If you want to retcon though, it is much easier and more logical to say Yoda lied to Luke so he could fulfill his destiny and become a Jedi despite the short training. Yoda simply told Luke what he needed to hear. Rather than reveal that there were these other Force sensitives out there, he made it clear to Luke that he alone needed to step up to the plate and defeat Darth Vader. The vision of the Grand Inquisitor knighting Kanan was a vision conjured by Yoda, making it so that in a way, Yoda was the one to actually knight Kanan. I really think this is the case because Yoda not only knew of other Jedi, but he met through the Force other Jedi too. Like, he was aware of Kanan Jarrus, and he was definitely aware of Ezra Bridger. Many have speculated that the vision of the Grand Inquisitor knighting Kanan was a vision conjured by Yoda, making it so that in a way Yoda was the one to actually knight Kanan officially. Besides, Kanan being a knight shouldn't contradict the lore since Kanan was dead by the time of Return of the Jedi. But then, of course, we have other Jedi too in the mix, and if Yoda thought of Luke as being the last Jedi and Kanan was already dead, then what did he think of these other Bokken Jedi? Because now we have a real topic on our hands. Did Yoda not consider these other Jedi roaming around not real Jedi, and he only thought of Luke as being the successor to the Jedi Order and himself? The biggest topic, I think, in this is Ahsoka. What you have to understand is that Ahsoka didn't think of herself as a Jedi and was probably stuck on Malachor. Ezra was in a different galaxy. Kanan died before A New Hope, and what's more, Cal Kestis put aside being a Jedi to have a relationship with Marin to go to this other place that nobody can discover. Most of the other Jedi were hiding from the Empire after Order 66. Luke was the only one trained, helping the rebels, taking on the Empire, trying to make the galaxy actually a better place directly. So I think Yoda was mentioning a true Jedi trained in the old traditional ways, as well as keeping the Jedi code. Yoda mentioning to Luke that he was the last of the Jedi and holding him to such a high esteem is because Luke is actually a true Jedi trained in the old traditional ways, as well as he kept the Jedi code constantly, at least as far as one can go in this point of time. Of course, we're going to see what's going to happen in the Mandalorian Season 4, Ahsoka Season 2, and Mandalorian movie, but Obi-Wan helped Luke with blade combat, while Yoda helped him in tapping into the Force. I remember reading one of the old EU novels a long time ago where Kenobi lets Luke know that he is the last of the old Jedi and the first of the new Jedi. One key bit of information in this novel of Return of the Jedi is that both Obi-Wan and Yoda still have the old order mentality of eliminating someone that's too far gone. All throughout the fight between Luke and Vader, both Obi-Wan and Yoda were telling Luke to strike down his father because he has gone too far to be redeemed. They were both proven wrong, of course, in the very end when Anakin actually fulfilled the prophecy. There's an argument to be made that Yoda's reason for not telling Luke isn't because he didn't consider the other Force-sensitive Jedi in the galaxy, but rather for a very different reason. I think Yoda told Luke what he needed to hear to strive to be a better Jedi. Luke could have went into Jabba's palace or the second Death Star thinking, it's okay if I get defeated here, then because we have other Jedi in the galaxy that will defeat Vader and the Emperor. This mentality might have stifled his growth, whereas if he thought he was the last surviving Jedi, then he'd fight with everything he could and continue trying to strengthen himself, his ideals. I think it's best that these other characters were not considered Jedi the way Yoda or anyone else who was part of the particular order believed. They followed rules that were too restrictive and ultimately caused their downfall. If these characters wanted to become Jedi like the previous order, they'd have to follow the same rigid guidelines that proved to be detrimental. But I'm pretty sure everyone here watching this already knows that. Kanan is a true Jedi, but is dead by this point. But let's get back to that point in time when Luke is confirmed to be the last of the Jedi, of the true Jedi. So what you have to understand is this. Let's talk about this particular timeline. Kanan is a true Jedi, yes, but is dead by this point. Ezra was at Peridia, plus trained outside the confines of the Order, and both Cal Kestis and Ahsoka were Ronin Jedi operating differently than Yoda's view of a Jedi. One was more of a rogue while the other renounced the title completely. With Ezra, I can see why Yoda doesn't see him as a Jedi. Ezra was born around the same time that Palpatine destroyed the Jedi Order and turned the Republic into an empire. Ezra never had the chance to be raised and trained by the Jedi like Kanan, like Ahsoka, and Cal Kestis. It doesn't matter if these three individuals don't see themselves as Jedi, because in Palpatine's eyes, they are Jedi, and will see to it that they are eliminated just like the rest. Yoda wasn't lying when he told Luke that he was the last of the Jedi, because by the time he said that, Kanan was already dead, Ezra was trapped in Peridia, Ahsoka renounced her title and didn't consider herself a Jedi, and of course Cal had completely vanished into another place. So I think Yoda is the second greatest Jedi, with Luke at number 1. Luke learned the way of the Jedi, then made it better. I also think that the Jedi were meant to end and that Yoda didn't fail. It's true that most of the Jedi that followed Yoda met their fate with Order 66. I think they all served to bring the balance in the end. Yoda's Jedi were trained to fight the Sith, including Luke. Yoda's Jedi were trained to fight the Sith. This includes Luke Skywalker too. But after Luke, Obi-Wan is the most attuned with the light, which seems to be represented in this series in that he was unable to draw on the Force, having felt responsible for Vader. If we're comparing everybody to Luke, Qui-Gon has the best understanding of the nature of the Force, maybe more so than Luke Skywalker. But in the end, I think Dave Filoni has tried his best to actually tell Yoda's side of the story, that from his point of view, Luke was actually the last of the Jedi, of the true Jedi, and it's quite clear that by this statement, he either discounted many other Jedi that had renounced their ways, and he didn't consider some of the new crop to be true Jedi, but Bokken Jedi that would not be able to help or understand. But tell me your thoughts. Talk to me down below.